Thank you so much. And thank you, Jane. Jane's focused on place and mining a place, finding the people to find out what would make a place work better. I'm actually starting at the other end. I'm starting with people, and I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. I've sort of called this People, Policy, Place and Power. And you may well ask, what on earth gives me the authority to talk about it? Well, I'll tell you. I was born with a bit of a silver spoon. But I married a commercial fisherman from North Shields, then a rundown fishing port in northeast England, east of Newcastle. Through marriage, I inherited 2 children. And bringing them up, I was determined that they should have access to the life chances that people like me from the South took for granted. And for that matter, so should everyone else, regardless of gender, ethnicity, ability, or place. Lucy's tasked us to think about useful evidence. My evidence is the evidence of lived experience. It's informed everything I've done. It was my greatest education. And yes, I do have a tertiary education. I believe passionately in the role that people, ordinary people, have in regenerating economies, if only they're given the voice, the tools, and the opportunity to do it. To that end, I set up Bridge Club Limited in 2000 to bridge between early stage business founders and the people who would help them grow their businesses. We also ran creative enterprise programs in schools and found short-term work placements for students in what I call the department store of Northeast businesses, i.e. all types and all sizes of businesses and organisations. The premise was very simple. Northeast England had very low startup rates and very high structural unemployment. Bridge Club was my initiative to accelerate enterprise and entrepreneurship for people in the place that I lived and which the economic and social statistics demonstrated needed it badly. So there you have that marriage, lived experience, hard evidence. We're now halfway through 2021, and the sad fact remains that 20 years on, the Northeast still has one of the lowest startup rates and one of the highest unemployment rates in the UK. Being bottom of all the right social, economic and health statistics and top of all the wrong ones tells its own story. But statistics don't prove Northeasterners don't have ability. Quite the reverse. Giving them the opportunity to show that they do is what matters. And my present company, First, and my business partners on this call, does exactly that. First is the daughter of Bridge Club and is run by a young Northeasterner, Charlotte Windybank. Its core driver is a commitment to listen and thereby learn and act. The business is based on developing leadership and progression skills for young people, early stage founders and professionals. In our view, policy and purpose, in order to be effective, must come from the ground floor, as it were, i.e. from the people living the experience of high employment, high unemployment, low self-esteem and aspiration. First has grown into an accredited learning and development agency, specialising in building essential commercial skills. We work with universities, local authorities and devolved government to make those all-important connections, go back to what Jane was talking about, those networks, connections to job markets and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Evidence says that 95% of employers want employees with enterprise skills. And those startup or self-employment statistics I quoted just before speak for themselves. More early stage founders with sustainable businesses are essential to the area's economic recovery. Our mission is to ensure that everyone has access to opportunities and new ideas within their local community. We run an accredited level 1 in enterprise, underpinned by the Entrecomp model. Develop ideas, seize opportunity, gather resources, and most importantly, back to the beginning of what I said, take action. This and a follow-on level 1 in accountancy sponsored by the IT giant Sage go way beyond the formal evidential need for change to make society fairer. But don't just take my word for it. I've got a couple of video clips which are going to be posted in the chat, but they'll make me go over, and Lucy will tell me off. So I'll just tell you about these case studies. Matt Pritchard was working in an HR role in hospitality before being furloughed. Our course, Understanding Enterprise, helped him focus on his skills and move into a desired new role. Leanna Hill dropped out of university. Our course helped her find the confidence she needed to use her expertise and pursue and gain an internship in user experience, UX, with a leading digital agency in the Northeast, Hedgehog Lab. So don't listen to what they say because I'll break my thing. That's how change happens. Policymakers, please take note. And that, of course, in itself is a segue to how I met Lucy, today's host. And I'm delighted, Lucy, that you've invited me, and thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to listening and learning. My inspirational friend, Professor Jane Turner, Pro Vice Chancellor for Enterprise, Engagement and Gender Equality at Teesside University, was saddened by what she perceived as the top-down approach that appeared to be the model in evidence gathering for UK 2070 Commission's Teesside Task Force, which, as you know, and I know there's a couple of commissioners on here, is the long-term politically independent Levelling Up initiative. Tees Valley economic prosperity sits at only 75% of the UK average. And yes, just the average. And it has a relatively low concentration of people in higher skilled and higher paid jobs. There are also very high levels of deprivation in certain areas. Take Chambridge Road, where life expectancy alters by a year every mile you go up it. But as everyday economy promises, levelling up is more than just about economics. It's about social prosperity, health and well-being, raising aspirations, creating opportunity, and harnessing the potential of individuals. Having that philosophy herself, Professor Turner wanted to go below the usual radar of policymakers and big business. She wanted to gather the lived experience of girls and young women growing up in the Tees Valley. She wanted to hear from Tees students, recent graduates, and also senior education leaders with access to primary and secondary children and their families. She wanted to know what it's really like growing up and living in the Tees Valley. What do those people say would help them work harder, have hope, let alone greater aspirations? What would make their life easier so that they had the headspace to learn? Try studying when you're hungry or cold or fearful of going home. And she wanted to get these realities articulated so that they'll not only inform, but really influence future policy. I had the privilege of recruiting for and running these focus groups. 1 minute. And they're both shocking, 1 minute, yep, and hopeful listening. Give us voice and we'll rise to the challenge, was the message we heard loud and clear. Don't judge us by our postcodes or statistics. The same listening to lived experience has informed the inspirational campaign that Jane Turner has initiated to shift and lift the aspirations of young girls in the Tees Valley, where low levels of participation in further and higher education and low aspiration have been exacerbated by COVID-19. I don't have the time to cover the findings of the Plan 2020 report. I will really be told off. But it sets out a picture of wholesale inequality facing girls across the UK. In the 2020 index, Hartlepool features in the bottom 10, and in the previous report, Middlesbrough ranked last overall. But what brings these research findings sharply home is the evidence that the girls don't feel the way people perceive them to be. They don't lack ambition. They don't lack ambition. They are ambitious and they're academically able. I know this because I've met some of them and talked to many. I have lots of anecdotal evidence, but the headline is this: the boys call us washing machines because that's all they think we're good for. That's at FE level that's being said. This has to stop, and the boys need educating too. Sometimes a shock is a driver for action. This was Jane's, and as a result, she and some colleagues, including me, launched the Power of Women campaign in the Tees Valley 3 months ago. Our aim is very simple: to lift and shift the aspirations of girls and young women, giving them the voice that they need to be heard, access to role models, and through this, the belief that they can live their dreams.